Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting for Wednesday, June 28th, 2017 to order. Can we have a roll call, please, Mr. Alexandrovich?
Yes. Mrs. Witkowski.
Here.
Mr. Gamble.
Here.
Mr. Nielsen.
Here.
Mrs. Evans.
Here.
Mr. Lewis.
Here.
Mrs. Larson.
Here.
And I am here.
Thank you. Has the meeting been properly posted? Oh, the meeting has been properly posted. Thank you. Please rise and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Witkowski. Is there any comment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 4 is community comment. Is there any comment? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 5. Is there any board member that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Lewis. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Nielsen. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Item 6 is school board announcements. Do we have any announcements today?
I did attend a foundation board meeting. They seem to be kind of regrouped and are moving ahead. So just once, that's all. We'll report on that. I did attend that meeting. And they're working on the back-to-school bash, which will be their next big fundraiser in the fall.
Okay, thank you. I attended my second FAPSU meeting since they came here in May and did their presentation, and Dr. Miller was also at the last one. And they're just very informative now, now that they have like a coalition, so they have attendance from all areas of the city and representation so that they could maintain their grant. So it is very informative. Also, I did mean to mention in May, and I didn't, so I'm going to mention it now. Chief Oliva brought forward an ordinance in May to the Common Council prohibiting huffing, and I thought it's just worth bringing up to the board that we now have that ordinance in the city. You know, kids that inhale off of cans. It's just worth noting that we have that now for our schools to be aware of it too. And
What was it called?
an ordinance against huffing.
Huffing.
Yeah,
Okay.
when you inhale off of cans. So we didn't used to have that. And that's all I have. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. School board calendar. We have a regular board meeting July 12th, 2017 here at the ECC at 6 o'clock p.m. We have our board retreat August 3rd, 2017 here at the ECC at 5:30 p.m. And we have a regular board meeting August 23rd, 2017 here at the ECC. That's at 5:30 p.m. That's prior to our annual meeting of the electors, August 23rd, 2017, here at the ECC at 6 o'clock p.m. And item 8 is school board liaison reports, personnel and policy, 4010 physical examinations, and Mr. Lewis.
Thank you. So policy 4110, physical examination requirements, is up for elimination. This policy is contained in its entirety in the employee handbook. It's also part of the exercise we discussed about benchmarking our policies against the WASB suggested and required policies. It is one that's not required by the WASB through their analysis. So I would make a motion to eliminate board policy 4110.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Lewis.
Second.
And a second by Mr. Nielsen to eliminate policy 4110, physical examinations. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9 is reports and presentations. We have 9A, the 2017-18 CISA contract approval. Who are we going to go with that today? Oh, Mr. Milzer, okay.
We do this on a yearly basis. Each year we have a contract with CISA. It stands for Cooperative Educational Service Agency, and they try to do things that would be cheaper to do for an agency like that than each district individually. So the things that we get from them, audiology services, a couple of seats at alternative schools, and some access to a network for educational issues. So it's $85,757, and we would like approval of that tonight so we can go ahead with next year's planning.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2017-2018 CISA contract.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Lewis and a second by Mrs. Larson to approve the CISA contract. Any discussion?
What was the amount last year? Do you remember?
I don't have it. It's usually about then. It's been higher than that in the past, but we have very few seats this year. I think it's only a couple at each of those.
It might have been 2 years ago, it was over 90.
Do we,
It's been higher.
and do we pay for all the units even though we don't use them, like the audiologists? If we don't use that many units, is it variable or is this fixed?
It's fixed for what we're signing up for, but we know how many we're going to need based on the student need that we have.
Oh.
And if we get, let's say, another student in the district that would need that, we could add to it. But we try not to have any left.
I just want to say I attended my first CISA meeting this past month, and I just want to let the board know that they offer over 100 programs to districts, and that the state provides no funding to CISAs. And so they're pretty competitive in their pricing that they offer the districts. And so I'll try to provide reports at meetings once a month on what I find out from CISA 1. This last meeting, basically, we went over just basic information for board members, so, but CISA 1 does offer over 100 programs, so it's a great service to districts. Any other comments?
And
Just an answer to your question, this year's contract was $111,000.
And the grant allocation, is that their grant or our grant? Or what does that mean?
Where are you looking on there? Oh, title services, right, that's their grant allocation.
That we take advantage of?
We get.
Those services?
We get those as well, yeah.
Any other comments?
And what does that footnote mean? Some sufficient funding program cost prorated among participating districts. Is that supposed to belong somewhere? I was confused. The bottom.
If it affects everyone, if someone were to drop out of the program, that's why they try and do all of this ahead of time, so that everybody has their contract done going into the next year. And they spend the spring planning that. They send out their first one of these, I think it's in January or February, to say, what do you think you'll be using for next year, so that they can get some idea of where districts are going, or if someone doesn't need a service anymore.
Okay? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Lewis, a second by Mrs. Larson. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9B is the 2718 SWSA membership renewal. Mr. Milzer?
Actually,
you're gonna
I'll
do
take
that
that one.
Okay.
I've had the opportunity now to attend 3 meetings with SWSA, and I'm learning more about what that organization has to offer. There's quite a bit of information that can be obtained about what's happening in the state in terms of the budget and other areas in which legislators are making plans for school districts. So it is a really valuable resource for our district. I might mention that I also attended one of the meetings where they had guest speakers on mental health. I think I provided you with some information about that. So I'm eager to continue to attend the meetings and bring that information back to Franklin so that we can use that information to impact our school district. So I would recommend that we continue that contract.
Okay, thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve the 2017-18 SWSA membership renewal?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen, a second by Mrs. Larson. Is there any discussion?
Just a quick question on the, it's not equally distributed. There's a couple of districts that pay less. Is that-
Elmbrook, I know that I think they're the fiscal
South
managers.
Agent.
Elmbrook hosts the meetings, and South Milwaukee's the fiscal manager.
Okay.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Thank you. Next to the 2017-18 district budget presentation, Mr. Milzer.
Yes. The budget document is attached to board docs if you wanted to look at it, but I can just run through it on here as an introduction. These- Tonight is really just the introduction of the first draft of the budget. We'll have a second draft at the annual meeting in August, and in October, we'll have the final draft after the state lets us know what we'll be receiving in aid. We know how many students we have, and so forth going forward. I'll introduce it tonight, and you have 2 weeks before the next meeting to take a look at it. If you have any questions, send me your questions, and I'll get the answers out to everyone before the next meeting. And again, this is our first draft, really just to get us started for the year. We know that it will change. It'll change when the state gives us our numbers, when we find out exactly what staff we hired, and all of that information changes this. The structure of it stays the same, though. It's the culmination, really, of all the initiatives we've talked about over the past year, the plans from instruction, what we're going to be doing in the future. All of that's reflected the staffing report that you heard in May. But almost all of the factors are estimated at this point, so those are subject to change as well. And in a year when we don't have a state budget, there are even more unknowns. So I'll introduce the budget. I'll go through some of the highlights, and then I'll let you take a look at it at your leisure. Starting with the assumptions. Enrollment, it's important because it's the main factor in the revenue limit calculation, and we're estimating resident enrollment to increase by 10 students for next year, and we had approved 56 open enrollment seats to fill those that are leaving those seats as seniors, and any others that might be leaving. As far as state aid and the revenue limit, our equalized value grew less than the average for the state, so we would assume, per the equalization aid formula, that we would get additional aid in the coming year. It doesn't look like the state will put any more money into that formula, but it is a possibility, and now that budget talks have pretty much stopped, we have no idea whose version is going to come out or what they'll be able to agree on. The governor's proposal was for $200 a student in categorical aid in 17-18 and another $204 in 18-19. Let's see, salaries, the district is settled with all of its employee groups. at a 2% increase. We had looked over a number of surveys. The largest was 6,000 organizations, which indicated that business was going to be paying an average of 3%. We took into account our need to retain staff, also our budget situation, the fact that the CPI was 1.26 from the state, and we were able to go with a 2% increase for 17-18. As far as benefits, we bid out our health and dental insurance. The health insurance came out as a 4% increase after making plan changes, and we're putting an emphasis on wellness for next year. And the plan changes we made to try and keep the cost of the plan down in the future. And for our dental insurance, there was a 5.9% decrease in that cost. We'll take a look at a revenue graph. The red color is the local non-tax revenue, the green is the local tax revenue, and the blue is state and federal aid revenue. The green and the blue make up the revenue limit for the most part, so that everything is driven by the blue color. The more aid we would get from the state, the smaller the green would be, and vice versa. On the expenditure side, the blue is salaries and benefits. We're at 75.7%. The yellow is purchase services, 15.9%, and other, like supplies and so forth, would be 8.5%. And it's obvious that education is a labor-intensive process, hence the large salaries and benefits component. If we take a look at the tax picture, we talked about the fact that our equalized value went up less than the average for the state, which again would make Franklin look poorer in the state's eyes as far as that calculation, which should mean that they would give us more money than they would have otherwise. But for this year, really the big thing is the long-term debt tax levy is beginning to start for Forest Park. And when we had the referendum, we gave an estimate of an additional cost of $65 per $100,000 of assessed value, and based on doing just a little bit less borrowing, doing at the proper times and getting good interest rates, our debt cost is at just $41 per $100,000 for that entire referendum. So we came in well under, but it is an increase in the long-term debt. So of the approximately 4.4% increase on the total, it's 3.4% of that, pretty much, 3.3, 3.4. So it's the biggest portion of that. Our tax levy for educating children is really going up just over 1%. And I'm hopeful that in the fall that will look even better, but I can't say for sure, and I really don't want to go out on a limb on that one. There's a lot of discussion to be done at the state level yet to see where we come out on that one.
With the additional monies that we're getting from the state, I'm kind of surprised that we even have an increase here. We're getting an additional $200 per child, right?
That's what the governor is proposing. It didn't sound like at least the assembly was on board with that, so I could see that being cut to 100. And they're not putting the money into the equalization aid formula, which would drive down taxes instead of giving more money for education. The form that they're giving it in gives us more money for education, but it doesn't affect taxes.
So what did you put into the budget to offset? I mean, the cost for educating children is up, teachers get more, et cetera. But
Right.
This is showing that the levy is affected, but we're getting more money from the state. And what did you put in there for that, such that we can offset the levy?
Yeah, I think it's about $300,000 more of equalized aid that I put in.
Okay.
We'll see when we get there, but it's right in there someplace. And I really think we'll get more than that. in the end by the time we get to October, but I'm not comfortable enough to say that's what our estimate is at this point.
And if we get that, then we'll be able to keep the levy down?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, the levy will go down even further.
The 300 corresponds to what increase?
It went from about 16,037,000 or something to 16.3
Okay.
in round numbers. Yeah.
So the 200 from the governor is like the pie in the sky number, is that, this is where I thought Alan was going with it, is that 200 in here as a,
No.
as an assumption? No, I wouldn't think so. Is any of that in here?
100's
of it?
in there.
100, because that was what we've pretty much been getting, 100. Did we get that last year, the 100 per student?
We got 100 last year for the first time in 3 years. We'd gotten 0 for 2 years before that and from any direction. So anytime we can
what's
get.
in there, so as we start hearing things going on at the state level, if we hear that 200 proposed number might be closer to 100, we know that what we're seeing tonight is about what you thought. If it
Right.
becomes less, then this isn't gonna look as good. If it becomes more, then the levy would be projected lower. Is that fair to say?
The form that 100 or 200 comes in doesn't affect the levy.
Okay.
But just by the fact of where we are in having underspent our budget this year and having the value of the community come in under the average, I would expect that we would get more equalization aid, and that will drive down taxes.
And of the 4.4 that's on the screen, 3.4 is from the referendum?
Right.
Okay.
And why doesn't the $200 per child have zero effect on the levy?
That's meant to provide additional money for education for students. So it depends how the state gives us the money as to whether, and if it comes to us in equalization aid and we get more of it, there's no decision to be made. The levy has to go down.
And if they give it to us just for education and they do like a reimbursement for if you spend additional monies on education, then it would have no impact. I could see that.
Right. And this one was the one where there's a few caveats in the governor's budget that you have to be paying 12% for health insurance in order to get this, and it has to be divided up by school, by your enrollment, which makes no sense at all. So I'm hoping if we do get that money, those pieces aren't in there, because it's really the state telling you where you will spend this money, kind of, but not really, because what if your teachers in one building are more veteran staff and they're making more money, but when you divided it by school, you didn't have enough money for that, and this one school is overflowing with money and can do all kinds of things, and the other doesn't have enough. It really doesn't make any sense, but, we'll see what comes out in the end. And then these are tentative estimates because of a lot of things I've mentioned. The assessed valuation, we don't know. Number of students for 17-18, official number, we don't know. The amount of state aid, don't know. We don't even have a state budget. So we're estimating all of those things. If we take a look at the history of our tax rate over time, this shows it from 1986 to the current rate. It's been a 48% reduction in the tax rate over that amount of time. So it's still historically low, even though it's showing a little bit of an uptick there. And really that's due to the referendum. Again, this is the budget document to be adopted by the board next month. We do have, and you'll notice that we've added some carryover. We had a balanced budget, revenues and expenses, and then we've added to that some carryover expenditures of $455,000. $300,000 of that is for technology, where we had the money in the budget last year, but it turned out we didn't need to replace the technology, computers and so forth, that was up for that. So we carried it over to this year where we do need it for a bunch of expenditures in technology. And the others was for the replacing equipment at the metals lab at the high school. It's in dire need of replacement, some of it's unsafe, and we really needed to do that, but it was a long lead time for the equipment. So we placed the order and then carried the money over to pay for it into this year, or next year, depending on how you look at it. So I will let you read over the additional 37 pages when you have time. And again, just send me an email with any of the questions you have, and I'll get those right back out to you so that everyone has the answers. But all in all, it's really a good budget, and I think things are really coming together with this, with the way the state aid looks, and being able to come in below the referendum numbers that we had out there.
So with the referendum dollars, and that means we got approved for a certain amount, but it cost us less to borrow that amount?
Right.
So we still
Yep.
borrow that amount, but it costs us less to do so.
Cost us less to do so based on the estimates of what we had in for interest and how long that borrowing would go.
Dr. Miller, do you have any comments on the budget at this time?
No, I do not.
Are there any other questions from the board right now on the budget? Before,
The borrowing savings was big.
Yes.
yeah. Okay, should we move on to the next item then? Okay, item D is the Public Officials Conference Report. Mrs. Witkowski, Mr. Gamble, and myself went to this conference out in Waukesha. It was just a very short conference, and I don't know, did,
I have,
yeah, do you want to, either of you want to start?
Oh, was that me? Sorry.
Not sure what that was.
I'm looking at, where's that coming from?
It's a wild animal.
it basically was a law firm covering different topics that would pertain to a public official, public records, open meetings, collective bargaining, wage and hour issues, a whole topic, bidding, conflicts of interest. It was quite in-depth, very legal,
Lots of legalese.
lots of legal stuff, yes. But important to be aware of as an elected official. And I have the document, I could share that, throw in the scanner and put it in the library if you like. Yes?
Well, it wouldn't, I suppose it wouldn't hurt, but basically, there are all types of elected officials there, and not even elected officials. It was open to just about anyone from the city government who wanted to go. And I just wanted, I did want to point out that, let's see, I printed this out that I put the connection to it, but I can't read it, I'm sorry.
Glasses?
I have glasses in, actually, but I still can't read it. That I have a link to it, wow, that is bad.
Which
The-
page you want? I got the original view.
Yeah, I have it too. Wait, Larry, do you want to go first while I find what I was looking for, since I can't read this?
I didn't really have a whole lot to add to that. It's very informative what they passed on to us. As a
Yeah.
new official, it was very reinforcing with some of the things that I knew previously from federal service. But and some updates on things that are going on in Madison that may be on the horizon they were giving us. But I didn't bring my notes.
Okay. Well, I did put a link in there to the one area, Appleton versus Kruger or Kreuger, where it's going to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. It's interesting because Mr. Kruger believes he should have been able to sit in on meetings between the superintendent and some teachers, and the district says, no, you shouldn't be able to sit in on every single meeting. So it is going to the Supreme Court, and if the Wisconsin Supreme Court is on his side, then that's going to change everything the way school district meetings work, that citizens can sit in on all your meetings. So that, I thought that was important to point out. Also, this didn't have to do with school districts, but there was an area, so if we do have this put on, you might want to look at it. There's an area where, for the city, they're having these little robots that are available now across the United States that can deliver items in your city, and unless Wisconsin says you can't have these robots deliver items, you might see them going up and down to deliver a pizza or deliver Amazon items to your houses and things, and I
You
just...
made a drone?
Yeah.
Not a drone, this would actually
Yeah.
be something about the size of a wheelchair rolling down your sidewalks.
Yeah, so the state's going to have to say, no, you can't have those if they don't want them. So can you imagine them just running up and down your sidewalks? But basically, this conference, it covered also open meetings, your open meetings law, again, with texting, again, saying that texting, you do need to keep a record of those texts if you're texting between board members, because you can't have an open record done on those. And I have had that done a couple years ago on mine, and I had to provide my texts between board members. So you are supposed to save those texts. Once you delete them on your phone, they go away. I'm sure you could get them from the provider, but, so you have to remember, you might want to save those. So that was interesting. Also, it came up that, about bidding, which I know Mr. Milzer knows about. I'm sure it's going to pass that we have to go through the bidding process for,
I think you have to follow the state's
yeah,
rules,
follow the state statutes for bidding for referendum and just about everything we do.
Right, and we do for the referendum, just that the state has just a few more people in their purchasing department than we do. Makes it difficult.
Also, body cameras on police officers. I don't believe Franklin uses body cameras, but if they do start using them, our police officer in the high school, there's going to be some state statutes on that, that it must be, they must retain all their body camera footage. So I don't, do you know if we have? I don't think they do. So that, if that passes, that'll be something we might have to look into if our liaison officer gets a body camera. And then they covered closed sessions also. So, but it was interesting to go to if you ever have time to go to one. They're going to have it every year. It's really fast-paced information for the city and the schools. So it's a lot of data for Megan to put online, but if you think it's worth it, you can put it on.
Just scan it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. The next item then is the meeting agenda, publishing day discussion. Mr. Milzer.
For many years, the board packet went out on Friday afternoon, and since I've been working with the agenda and assembling everything, it seems like it just doesn't work on Thursday for some reason. A few years ago, we changed it to Thursday that we would post the agenda, and I don't know what it is, but things aren't ready, or, oh, it's a short week and you're waiting for something from the building, whatever it is, it doesn't seem to come together well. So I just wanted to ask, if it didn't make a big difference to the board, could we go back to publishing the agenda with all of the attachments on Friday rather than on Thursday in the future? I'm not sure how many of you are right on that on Thursday afternoon or evening.
There goes my Thursdays.
Fridays are fine with me.
Yeah, Fridays are fine with me because I don't look at it on Thursday. There's always a change to the agenda, so
Right.
why bother?
Right.
Yeah.
If it comes out on Friday and it actually stays the agenda, that, I'm good with that.
Everyone on this side seems fine with that? How about this side?
Like Friday noon, you're saying, or?
Friday at the end of the day.
Yeah, close the business.
You got the whole weekend.
Got the whole
yeah,
weekend.
You're good.
Okay, so it looks like we're good with that.
Okay,
I don't think
thank you.
we need a vote on that.
No.
But, and if Megan is absent, there'll be arrangements for someone to do that.
Right.
Backup, okay. Thank you. And then item F is the Forest Park Construction Report. Mr. Milzer?
As you recall, the district needs a natural resource special exception from the city due to the small wetlands we've found out there in the location where the new school will be. So last week, we attended a meeting with the Environmental Commission and went through the whole plan. The city staff gave suggestions on changes that they wanted, and the commission passed it based on us adhering to the recommendations that the staff had, which we definitely will do. The next night, we were at the Plan Commission and went through that. They had another suggestion that required changing the plans, moving, because we have to take our 9,950 square feet of wetland and replace it 1.5. We created or augmented a wetland that's in the back area of the school there. But it was right near the property line, and they asked that we move it back away from the property line so that we can leave the line of trees that's there, which we completely agreed with. But there were enough changes in the plans that and there is another Plan Commission meeting before the council meeting, so they asked that we come back to the next Plan Commission meeting for approval on it, having made those changes, and we've already submitted that with those changes in it. We will be back next week, Thursday, I believe, the 6th, at the Plan Commission, and then on the 18th at the council for approval on that, and then that would set us up for starting moving more dirt than we moved tonight on August 1st.
You know tonight doesn't count, right?
How far back is that
I
from the
thought it
initial?
saved us some money. I thought it did.
August 1st.
How far back is that from the initial timeline?
Full month and a half.
I would say 6 weeks. So then the 18th is supposed to be like final approval,
Right.
and then
Right. Yeah, it's actually the council's approval that you're looking for, and the council looks back to the Plan Commission and the Environmental Commission as recommendations.
I listened to the meeting and heard some of the comments. I don't even know how to say it. Everything that the neighbors have concerns about, do you feel they'll be addressed?
It's difficult because different neighbors want different things. Our land here generally drains, in 3 places it drains off to the east. One of them goes across the 2 neighbors on Forest Hill before heading towards the lake. And that's just the way the land lays, and you can't really change that. But they've asked that we not have our water going across their property.
Right.
Then we heard from the people who were in the condos, Tuckaway Shores, and they asked that they get all the water that they've been getting and possibly a little more because they don't want their lake to dry up. So the problem is getting that water to jump over the two neighbors into the lake. And we're going to spend some time tomorrow working with the civil engineer to see if there is a way to do that. What we've generally done here and what you want to do, because we'd have more impervious surfaces, we're obviously going to get the same amount of rain on our site as always, but it would flow away from us faster. And you want to slow it down before it flows away from us so that it's not tearing through their property, that it's just nicely draining. So that's what our bioswales and retention basins are doing. Slows it down, and then it gradually lets it go, so that the lake will get all the water it's ever gotten. It just won't get it in a rush. But I don't think that our consultant made that clear at the meeting.
Right.
I think one of the plan commissioners made it clear, but that's one of the things we're going to work on at the next meeting, and we're going over that beforehand.
And the other thing I was confused on was the sidewalk that we're required to put in the front. There seemed to be some confusion on that, whether we have to put it in now or not, because when it was said that it needs to, it's going to end in front of their properties, and then people will walk on their property. Well, it's the right-of-way. They're not walking on their properties. So I was unclear as to whether they really want the sidewalk now or they don't.
Right.
Did you take it as they want the sidewalk?
Staff said
know
the
staff
sidewalk
wants it.
had to be there.
Yeah.
And the plan commissioners were holding it against us because we put the sidewalk in there.
Right.
So,
You're talking
I'm
Forest
not
Hill?
sure. We're
Yeah,
fine,
we have
we're
to-
fine with the sidewalk not being there, but perhaps if it was turned at the end so that it went to the road and it would say to you, okay, I'll cross here and then go across into the subdivision, which is where most of those kids would be going, but we can't guarantee that if they get to the end of the sidewalk, they won't walk along the road in front of the other properties.
Right, because the neighbors will never have to put one in.
No.
Unless they would develop, and they're not planning on developing, as far as I know.
Well, when they did that renovation on Test Corners Road and North Cape, they put a sidewalk in on the east side of Test Corners, right up to Romy's Bar, and then it stopped, and then there's a barricade.
Yeah.
So it's
And
like,
that's-
you can walk sidewalk to here, and then that's it. So.
And we're not the
we
only
wouldn't
ones.
want something like
Yeah.
that here, that would be, and if we're gonna have a row of trees between the road and the building, the sidewalk would be on the road side of the trees?
Yes. The sidewalk, I think, would actually be on the city's right-of-way, which we're having to give them some right-of-way so that they have the same amount all up and down the road.
And we're not the only property in Franklin that has that now. It's just new properties are required to have the sidewalks, and others aren't, so they just end. That's just what happens, they just end. So, yeah. Any other comments? All right, thank you. Item G, the treasurer's report is available in the board docs library. And then item 10, I'm looking for a motion to enter into closed session for a discussion of the performance of specific named non-represented employees of the district pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub C, and B, discussion of negotiation strategy regarding a contract pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.85 sub 1 sub E. Motion by Mr. Lewis, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gamble. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mrs. Larson.
Aye.
Mr. Lewis. Aye. Mr. Gamble.
Aye.
Mrs. Evans.
Aye.
Mr. Nielsen.
Aye.
Mrs. Witkowski.
Aye.
And I say yes.
Motion carries. We are in closed session then at 7:20. We'll take, do you want to take a 3-minute or 4-minute break? Okay, we are back in open session at 8:00 p.m. And item 12 is future agenda items. We have the 2017-18 district budget approval for July 12th, and the technology report for July 12th. Is there anything else from the board members?
The only thing I guess I would alert everybody is come September, Dr. Miller will have the full policy comparison
Okay.
report between WASB and our policy list.
Thank you.
August, you do.
Okay.
And we got the parade on the 4th.
Well, that's not a future agenda item.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Parade recap.
There you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
There you go.
That's right, we'll have to recap on it.
That's right. Okay. Item 13 is a board meeting debriefing. Are there any board comments?
I thought the groundbreaking ceremony was fantastic, despite the rain.
Yeah.
So that was very nice. And I appreciate all of the information that we received in our closed session.
Yeah. And the kids were great. at
Yeah.
the
Yeah, that was
groundbreaking.
neat. Yeah,
My feet are still wet, so.
Yeah.
made the most of it.
Yeah.
Okay, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Motion by Mr. Nielsen,
Second.
second by Mrs. Larson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 8:01 PM.